My name is Jennifer Mills Knutson, and I'm the Senior Minister at the American International Church in London. We are a multiracial, multi-denominational, international congregation of folks drawn from across London and across the world.
Can resilience have the fun side to it?
I would hope so, because I think humor and laughter and joy are a huge part of becoming resilient. That what people need in order to be resilient is a sense of hope and to be reminded that joy can happen in spite of whatever the world throws our way.
In your experience, what has surprised you most about people in adversity?
In my role as a pastor, I have the honor of being present with people in some of their most challenging days, whether they're dealing with grief or disaster or trauma or a diagnosis, that I am there with them. And I am always surprised and amazed by people's resilience, that I've walked alongside people who've been through horrendous situations, and I wonder how they get up out of bed after that. And they do. And people just keep putting one foot in front of the other during the worst of times. And they ask, well, what else am I supposed to do? And so people have a greater well of strength inside them than they realize most of the time. But also I believe that, we serve a greater God that finds a sense of hope and joy in spite of the worst that the world might try to do to us.
Is emotional resilience something you think you can work on and improve over time?
Absolutely. And I think it's one of the things that we should all be working on all of the time. And it doesn't just happen within us. It just doesn't happen in a person's own soul. We tend to think, if I just did more yoga or exercised more or read more books or got off my phone or watched less TV, then I would be more emotionally healthy and I would have more stamina and I would have more resilience. Those things may be true, but it's also true that we need more than anything a network, a community, a sense of belonging and place. And those things equally require effort. And those things are efforts that aren't individual efforts, they are collective efforts. So I think work of building relationships with our neighbors, whether it's getting involved in a local book group or connecting with colleagues after work, those things build resistance. Being a part of a community of faith, whatever your tradition might be, being a part of a community of practice in some sort, whether it's an exercise group or a group that does service projects out in the community, all of those things build our capacity for resilience. Because what happens when something unexpected comes, when whatever terrible day happens, is that we are relying on the relationships we already have to see us through that crisis. And so being a part of a thick web of relationships and network and community, some of which are deep and abiding friendships and some of which are just simple things, like the guy that sells you your coffee that I mentioned earlier, or the person you always pass on your path to the bus in the morning. That's a part of community too. And paying attention to those things builds capacity for resilience when the day comes.
What resources do you think we could deploy that would help mental health people dealing with crisis?
I think you need to think about that before you get to the crisis. And there are resources out there. There is a course available called Mental Health First Aid. In our businesses, we all have first aid trained people. Everybody has their resident first aiders who are always on site. What about those who are trained to spot and to help coach and do an immediate first aid response to somebody with a mental health crisis? Sending some of your employees on that course could be a really good first start. But also having plans in place, just like you have a plan in place to get your building up and running again, just like you have a plan in place to get your workers back at their desks. How do you have a plan in place to tend to their broader needs. Whether you've got already contacts in the community for counseling, already relationships in the community with local institutions that you can turn to for support when you know more what it is than what you need. It's the same question about how we work on resilience all together, which is developing that thick network of relationships.
How do you think we can strengthen emotional resilience for our people at work?
I think it comes down to that same need to think not just about individual people and the individual support that you can give to anybody with a crisis or responding to a crisis, but thinking about the workplace as a community. Because like it or not, people spend a good chunk of their lives at work, a third of it or more. So how does that place feel like a safe space for people to find friendships, to find collegiality? Maybe they find their deep life friends there, maybe they just find casual acquaintances. Both of those matter to resilience.
Jennifer, that was a fascinating insight to your work and your thoughts on resilience. And we're very grateful for you giving us a greater capacity to begin to build community resilience as well as personal resilience. So thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you, my pleasure.